Okay, so if you saw my last video, you know that I ripped into Thor Love and Thunder pretty hard. But it looked as though most people agreed with me that this film is not as good as everyone says it is. Today's video essay is part 2 and the follow-up to that video. I've had time to cool off, reflect, and go again. So today I bring you part 2 to my thoughts on Thor Love and Thunder. So a lot of you will notice that in the last video I didn't talk much about Jane Foster, so I wanted to start this video out a little bit more positively than the last, because Jane Foster was the portion of this film that I actually quite enjoyed. Besides the bad dialogue and the writing from occasion, Jane is actually a pretty good and consistent character here. I think her need to help and save the world lines up with her intentions previously in the MCU. How she was willing to help Thor in the first film, way back in phase 1, lines up perfectly with the same way she couldn't let him fight Gore alone in Love and Thunder, thus sacrificing her own life to help the one that she loves. I think that's neat. I also think the cancer story is great too. Now, I mentioned in my last video that Love and Thunder doesn't really have any emotional stakes. However, it does to a certain extent, but let me explain. The cancer story is great in terms of giving an emotional edge to the film that allows there to be a tension between our two central characters of Jane Foster and Thor. However, the larger issue is that the film plagues itself by being too comedy-centric, that the emotional weight of the Jane Foster story is constantly conflicted with and drowned out by all the jokes. Now, I'm not saying that the film can't joke or have funny moments, and nor will I stay on this point for too long since it's been beaten to death on the internet recently, but the jokes are too much. This film's potential allowed it to be one of the most jaw-dropping, eye-tearing MCU films to date, with all that Thor has lost and of course the Jane Foster cancer story. But the attention is taken away from that when the film consistently wants to be a comedy. It undermines the seriousness of certain stories, and for me, means it doesn't work as well as it could have. I still remain positive about the idea of the story they had for Jane Foster, and I wish they could have spent a little more time developing it, but unfortunately, it fell victim to the MCU's formula and the bad writing of Thor, Love and Thunder. And a little side note before we move on to something else I wanted to talk about. I also wanted to mention that I rewatched the film in between my last video and this one. I'd like to mention that in my last video I said that they never mentioned how Thor has lost absolutely everything. However, upon rewatch, I realized that they actually do mention how he's lost absolutely everything in the last few years of the MCU. But the issue is that they decided to not act upon it as the main driving force of Thor's character, like it was no big deal. When Korg narrates the opening scene, he tells the audience about how much Thor has lost. And yeah, I get this was probably partially to set up his love for Jane and how he's going to lose her too, but like I said in my previous video, the potential was there, and the writers even realized this. But the fact that they didn't carry this as the main arc or one of the core themes of the film instead of just referencing that Thor lost people is bewildering to me. They could have fully created a major character study of Thor for this film that would have had delved deep into his emotional trauma, but no, I guess they wanted 2 flying goats instead. Another thing I wanted to address is that I've had a few people pointing out to me that the reason Thor Love and Thunder is a film where everything is a joke and most serious moments are perceived to be goofier than usual is because Korg is the one narrating the film. He narrates it from the start, and at the end he's the one to close the story. Which, to be fair, does make sense. This is a good reason to explain the goofiness of the film, because as Korg would see events play out, the film we got is very accurate to Korg's personality. However, this does not mean that Love and Thunder is a misunderstood masterpiece. In fact, it's far from it. Just because there's a reason to why the film is overstuffed with screaming goats doesn't mean it's good. It's like drawing a really bad self-portrait and then saying, well, it's not bad because I meant to draw it that way. Yeah, no. If this was a legitimate decision in which, because of how well this theory lines up with the movie we actually got, then this makes Taika Waititi look even worse. And the thing is, Taika isn't a bad filmmaker, not even close. He proved he can make a great Thor film with Ragnarok by literally reinventing the whole character. And also one of my personal favorites of his, a film that I studied in film studies at university, which is What We Do in the Shadows, which is a low-budget New Zealand indie mockumentary he co-directed. I highly recommend you go watch this film if you haven't. It's actually really good. It perfectly exemplifies his brilliance with humor on screen and what he's capable of. But in Love and Thunder, this did not translate. In fact, it felt more like he was trying to take the mick a little bit. And like I said, Taika is a smart director. And I also think it's quite a cool creative decision to tell a story through the eyes of a character. And I don't think that's something we've seen in the MCU thus far. A character that narrates the events of a film and then we see it back through their eyes. So I fully believe that Taika could have actually intended this. But if this is to be true, I'm not gonna lie, it was a poor decision. In the end, Thor Love and Thunder could have been special, and to reiterate on my point at the start of the last video, this film felt like a massive missed opportunity. Taika had his time with Thor, but I personally would have gone with a more serious director, someone who wanted to take Thor down the route of being haunted by the countless times he's lost something or someone in his past. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is another great example of this, as a film that was set up in a way in which it could have been the best Spider-Man film ever made. And I'll expand more on that point when I do my deep dive of TASM 2 when I eventually get there. But I think you guys get the gist. I deeply cared about Thor as a character, and he's also one of the only OG characters that are left in the MCU. As you guys know, I am falling out of love with the MCU the more that time passes and the more projects that come out. But Thor was one of those films that got me excited because it was Thor. It was one of the OG characters, one of the original 6 Avengers. But now, Thor falls victim to the countless projects that have been butchered by the MCU's humor and lack of quality. And I'm afraid Thor 5, if it is to happen, just isn't on my wish list. Thanks for watching this video essay. If you did enjoy, why not pop a like on this video? And also, if you enjoy my content, I upload videos every single Monday with a video essay, every Wednesday, which is a fan fiction, and every Saturday where I bring you all the latest and breaking news. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell as well. I'd really appreciate it and it would really help me out. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you all on Wednesday. Take care and peace.